And don't forget to subscribe.
Run it back.
Why?
Yeah, because I didn't record. Oh. Wait, I didn't record half of it.
What's going on, Faded Culture? I'm Adrian and Barron, and we're back with another barber tutorial. Today we're gonna be breaking down the steps on how to do an 8 on top with a bald mid fade. Before we get started, I wanted to give a huge thank y'all for those who have been shopping with us at fadedculture.co and been buying up all our merch. We appreciate all the love and support. With that said, don't forget to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and now let's jump right into this tutorial. Good? You're recording this time? My cameraman's still drunk. Alright guys, again, thank y'all so much for tuning in to another tutorial. And like I mentioned in the intro, thank y'all for those who have been shopping with us at fadedculture.co. As usual, all the steps are in the description alongside with all the tools that we use. We're going to start by using the fine side of the comb. And we're going to go ahead and start combing his hair into its neutral position. As you can see, I always like to comb according to the cowlick, as I am trying to get the hair to lay in its most natural position. With a number 8 and the lever fully closed, we're going to start running that through the top. And like you can see here, I am using my opposite hand to feed the hair into the clipper. I like to do this with the number 8 and 10 guard, as I notice that it creates more consistency when I do this. Make sure you run it once, recomb the hair in its neutral position, and go ahead and run that guard 2 or 3 times. Now with my number 3 guard lever fully open, we're going to start debulking some of the sides. Locating the parietal ridge, that's about how high we're going to take up this number 3.5. And again, I always highly suggest that you do debulk the sides if the hair is a little long. That way it's a lot easier to see our guidelines. As you can see, I am flicking up towards the top of this process. And just make sure that you end up at that same parietal ridge on the opposite side. Now using no guard, lever completely closed, we're going to start right at that temple peak area and work our way back, dropping it slightly as we approach the back of the ear. And yes, my clippers are 0 gap, which I highly suggest that you try as well if you haven't already. I will leave a link down in the description to a video on where we show you how we 0 gap our clippers. Again, make sure that you're always ending up at that same temple peak area on the opposite side. You could always view him from the front to make sure that they align. Now, still with no guard, we're going to open the lever completely, and then we're going to begin to start our second guideline. Again, staying easy with the wrist and flicking out as we approach the top of these guidelines. We are taking it up about an inch or so. Make sure that your guidelines are running parallel to each other to make sure that your fade is consistent throughout. Now with my number 1 guard lever still in that fully open position, we're going to continue the process and take this step up about an inch or so as well. Again, just make sure that your guidelines are running parallel to each other. Now with my number 2 guard lever still in that completely open position, we're going to continue the process. And with this number 2 guard, I'm not really focused on creating another guideline. I'm more so just trying to create space. So just flick it out as much as possible as you approach the top of this step. Now with my number 3 guard lever still fully open, we're going to continue. And if you did notice, my lever stayed in the open position the whole time as we're setting up. The only thing that changed was the guards. Again, this is the last guard that I will be using, so after this I'm just going to go ahead and use clipper over comb to finish blending the sides to the top. I usually like to use my lever fully open when I do clipper over comb. It acts basically as a safety net, but if you are really new to clipper over comb, I highly suggest that you put the number 1 guard in and then use it that way. By now you should have the first guideline that we created with the lever closed, second guideline that we created with the lever fully open, and the third guideline that we created with the number 1 guard, lever fully open. We're gonna start with that one and work our way down. Using my 1.5 guard, I'm gonna close the lever just slightly, putting it into a 3/4 position. It's basically somewhere between halfway and fully open. And this is just a rule of thumb that I like to use, guys. There will be some cases where I do have to open the lever completely or even close it just slightly. And what I do notice is that as I'm working my way down, I start to use mainly just the corners of the clipper just to get into tighter areas and try to ensure that I'm not creating another guideline. Make sure that you do keep a brush though in your opposite hand and that you are cleaning your canvas after every couple strokes. Now with my half guard, the lever is still gonna stay in that 3/4 position, and we're gonna work on that second guideline coming down. One thing I do want to note though is that this step will create a faint line right above it, but do not take this half guard any higher, as we will come back right now with the 1 guard and remove that line. So just again, stay easy with the wrist and use mainly the corners of the clipper and try to erase that guideline as much as possible. Now to remove that faint line that the half guard created, like I mentioned, we're going to use the number 1 guard. The lever's still in that 3/4 position though. Again guys, these are just a rule of thumb. I noticed some barbers in the beginning, you're going to want to have the intention of trying to dig the clipper in as hard as possible in order to remove a line. But in all reality guys, let the clipper do the work. Just close that lever slightly if you need to. There's no reason to dig in the clipper. And by now you should have the last line that we created with the 0. In order to remove that one, we're going to use a 3-step process, starting with the lever completely closed. Then we're going to open it halfway, and then we're going to open it completely. And for this last line, I'm going to work on just this left side first. I break this last line down into 3 sides just because this step is very tedious, so I try to take my time with it as much as possible. Now I'm opening the lever halfway. And finally completely open. Again, as you can see, I'm only using the last 2 or 3 teeth of the clipper to get into those tightest areas and separate the hair. Now that I'm done with the left side, I'm going to focus slowly just on the back side using the 3-step process, starting with the lever close. Now we're opening it halfway. And I do want to point out that some clients will have creases in their head, or the texture of the hair will change from one side to another, but do not get that confused, as I do like to pick at it when I come back and do my touch-up work. Again, now I'm starting with the lever closed and halfway, and finally fully open. Again, it's a very simple process. It's just time consuming, so just take your time guys. Do not get overwhelmed by it. All my haircuts do take anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. And now I'm gonna go ahead and poke at any touch-up work. I usually like to do my touch-up work with the half guard, and I start with the lever fully open, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put lever play, as this is gonna vary from one side of the head to another and from client to client. There's no one size fits all for touch-up work, guys. Now using my trimmer in a forward position just to get a lot closer to the scalp. Then I go ahead and turn that around and blend that line right in. And you'll see right now why I like to use the trimmer in that forward position first. It's basically creating a distinction from that bottom hair to the fade. So right now when we remove that bottom hair, you're gonna have a faint line that's going to be used as a guideline to know exactly how high up we're going to take the electric shaver. I usually like to remove the side hair about mid-ear. That usually gives me enough space to fade down the beard as well. As you can see, there's a faint line that I was speaking of. Now we know exactly how high up to take the electric shaver. It's very faint in this video, but it was clear to see in person. Just make sure that you are using your shaver in almost like a clipper fashion. As you approach that faint line, you turn it around and use mainly the corners of the shaver just to make sure that we're not creating another guideline. As you can see, I'm almost even flicking out as I approach that faint line. We're gonna go ahead and take his beard down to a 1.5. In order to blend that in, I'm gonna close the lever and then use that 3-step process in reverse now, starting with the lever fully open, and then I close it halfway here, and finally we're gonna close it all the way. Repeat that on the opposite side. And he in particular likes his mustache as full as possible, so I'm just gonna go ahead and touch up the hairs that are touching his lip. Always make sure, guys, that you're going above and beyond for your client and removing any excess hair from their nose or ear. As for the neckline, I usually like to locate the Adam's apple and go about a finger up and start there. I personally like to use the electric shaver in the neck area, guys. What do y'all prefer? Do y'all use the electric shaver or the straight edge? Let me know down in the comments below, guys, and why you like to use one over the other. And now I'm gonna show y'all how I set up my faded culture Turkish razor. I get the blade and I usually like to snap off these edges right here. It helps me just put the blade in a lot smoother. And again, guys, thank y'all for those who have been purchasing them. We will be restocking soon, so stay tuned for that. I'm applying a little bit of shave gel, but one tip I do like to add to the shave gel is go ahead and apply a little bit of water either before or after applying the shave gel. I find that this usually elongates the life of the shave gel. And of course, we're starting by shaving with the grain, using your opposite hand to stretch the skin to ensure a smoother shave. And guys, I found that the matte coating on our faded culture razor is a perfect contrast from the actual blade to the razor, so go ahead and check them out if you haven't already, guys. They're super lightweight, man. At first I was a little iffy, I'm not gonna lie, but the more I got used to it, the more I can't get over going back to using my other straight razors. Here I'm just dusting off my client before we apply the product. I'm even taking the hair off of his shoes right there. I always suggest, guys, dust the client off as much as possible so he can go about his day. Emulsify that pomade and run it through the surface. Here's the before, in case y'all forgot. And here's the after, guys, at number 8 on top with a bald mid fade. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial, guys. I hope y'all took something new away from it. As always, let us know down in the comments below something that y'all would like to see next. Thank y'all for those who have made it to the end. Give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe, guys. As usual, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.